joining with me in Ashland Talks, and we have a very important topic to discuss. And we're having a very special guest, and my frequent guest. And I love her speech. And today we're going to listen again to her. And she's an industry expert. Welcome back, Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me, Ash. I'm so excited to be here. I know that we do our Q&A like once a month, and we took a small break, and so I'm stoked to get back into the swing of things, and thanks for having me on the show.
Wow. And with that instinct and excitement, I would like to ask a beginning question
Sure.
that the companies are in a scaling era that they are trying to build up their company in a long run. So the organizational structure and the process are changing time to time. And if we compare a company in 1990s and the companies right now, which are giant companies like Nvidia, or if you took Apple and Nikes, so the organizational structures are changed like 90 to 95% totally changed from management level and executive levels, and even C-level, C-suite employees also a lot. I mean, 20 to 25 CEO or COO, CFO, and it's going on the list. So how are you seeing this transition from 1990 to right now, which is going on a big, huge business era?
Yeah, so I actually don't think it matters so much about the time frame. I think it matters about where those levels of business are, right? So when you're in a startup phase, even what I would consider an enterprise startup phase, which is a company that's under 3 to 5 years old, has been valuated in the multi-millions, but is still a small team, which we see a lot in the tech space, right? Even these enterprise startups, they don't have these massive teams because there's not a need to support that until the business grows and scales. So regardless of the decade that the business was in, right? When Apple started, it was in a garage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We can even look back to 1910s, 1920, where Walt Disney Corporation wasn't Walt Disney Corporation yet, but started in a small loft where Walt Disney was drawing, and now it's a multinational global conglomerate organization with theme parks, with movie divisions, with animation divisions, with travel. I mean, just massive. And that's just Disney, who also owns Fox, Marvel, Star Wars,
yeah.
ABC, like all of those. So I think it's more about where you are in your business journey than necessarily the decade that the business was started versus now. I will say that there's a lot that I think can get done at faster levels and requires more people in this day and age because of the connection of internet and all of those other things that allow us to move so much faster, meaning that our businesses grow and scale a lot faster. I mean, we see now even we'll have businesses that start, and within a year or in a couple of years, like those enterprise startups I was talking about, they're valuated at multi-millions of dollars without having spent 20 years in the startup slow growth phase. And that's because of the advent of technology and the ability to have communication and growth so much faster, both inside the organization as well as outside with your customers and your clients and in your marketing, than you ever could in decades past.
Wow. With that note, top of that, actually,
Mhm.
we have seen some scaled companies or scaling companies in multiple locations or multiple departments, actually, and how they are precise on that the consistency of operations are happening daily task or maybe monthly reports. So how they make sure or ensure that the things are work correctly, that as per the plan, when they compare with the budget and the past results, how they make sure the consistency of the operations.
Yes. So I love this question for a couple of reasons. One, I have a great answer that anybody can implement and use. But two,
Wow.
I've actually lived and breathed this. So a few years ago, I was handed the keys to a department when I was working in the corporate space, and they said, hey, make this work. So in a 3-year period, we went from 0 team members, just me, to over 30. In that, we went from one client to multiple clients. We went from one service that we offered to 5. We offered said services when we went from 1 language to 5 languages. And I spent 6 weeks living in Edinburgh, Scotland, setting up our European location. So in that, what we found and what I found was as we were trying to grow, we often hit those roadblocks of like, okay, we did this for this team and it worked really, really well. And now we're building this team for this client, or we're going over to Scotland and setting up our EMEA location. And in that, we found what worked for some would work for the others, but it really came down to our ability to document those processes and execute on that documentation. Put simply, standard operating procedures, right? When you can build SOPs, standard operating procedures, in your business, it's those things that are happening repetitively, and you want to be able to duplicate it. You've got to take the speed or slow down to speed up approach. Slow down, document what those steps are, document all of the links, the logins, all of those things that you do to make this work in this way, which is the most effective and efficient way for your business and your clients. And then take that and replicate it across the different teams, the different locations, etc. And if we want to look at the most obvious example for this, I was working in the tech and social space, but the most obvious example for this is a company like McDonald's, right? Started, I believe, in California. I'm not 100% sure. Started somewhere in the United States with a small little restaurant, mom and pop shop, and they built out their operations to have a streamlined system that could get their customers a hamburger in a very short amount of time. And the hamburger was the same every time. 3 drops of ketchup, 1 thing of mayonnaise, mustard, whatever it is. But they had it the same every single time. And then Ray Kroc came and saw that and went, this is genius. We can replicate this across multiple locations because it had been built in a way that it was repeatable. And so then he took the McDonald's small mom and pop hamburger shop and made it the global empire that it is today, that I know that if I go get a hamburger in London, it tastes very, very similar, and I can expect the same service, the same everything as I can right here in Salt Lake City, Utah, USA.
Wow. And when it's come to scaling the business and the process, as you mentioned, when it's come to conglomerate and big corporates, so I can remember one speech from Steve Jobs. I have listened, I think, 2 days back. So it was a speech recorded before 15 years, but still it's a very valuable speech from him, that he's mentioning that his company is integrated not like a big giant corporate techs, but it's like a startup. So he's saying that I have given some responsibilities to some personalities. So, okay, Mr. X is responsible for marketing, Mr. Y is responsible for production, and Mr. Z is operational manager. And so he's mentioning simply like how the startups work, same how the Apple is built up before 15 years. So the same theory from startup to a corporate, can we drag the same idea as he mentioning, or it should be tackled more in an advanced way?
I think in the foundational phases, that is delegation, right? There's no way that a business can grow if the sole owner, or maybe there's a few owners, are not honing in and really leaning into what they are best at, and also having the vision for where the business is going, right? It's nearly impossible to grow and scale a business if you don't have a vision for where you're going and you're unable to delegate. Right? So it's taking a look at going, hey, as Steve Jobs, I am the best as the face of the company and the visionary guiding us where we want to go. And I leave the marketing up to my marketing team, my expert, like you said, team member Y is now running our marketing. And so I think that, yes, we should apply that in its most foundational basic format to our businesses as we are growing and continuing to scale. That being said, I think there is value once you hit a certain tipping point in growth projections as far as your team and your operational and organizational structure goes. Because what I found when I was growing my business and my team was that I would delegate, this was task X to this team member. And then they would be able to do that. They were the expert in it. It was incredible. But then they were stuck because we were in startup phase. It wasn't like I could say, and now you're going to be the VP of this and the director of this and da 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 da. And so the growth pathing wasn't there. So we started to look at not only the growth and scale of what we were offering, the back end operations of that, but also the career pathing of everyone who was involved. So when we can look at the base foundation, yes, how do I delegate as a leader of an organization and bring in the right people to support the things that I'm not the best at, that they are rock stars at, and that will definitely help grow the company. Next phase of that is taking a look at, now I have this person in at this role. What are 2 roles above them and what are 2 roles below them? I'm not feeling those this instant, but now I know that as we grow and scale, that they need to delegate, and we can delegate roles beneath and also start to promote within and give them that career pathing, which leads to more retention, more attention for your team members, a better culture, which also results in better productivity, efficiency, and customer and client experience. So as we grow and scale, foundationally, yes, look at how you can delegate and hand those off to the right people, but also you're going to hit that tipping point where you need to start thinking culturally as well, and that includes that career pathing.
Wow. And top of that, Taylor, that we have seen a lot of corporations keep building up and the managerial positions keep increasing. We can see a lot of vacancies actually in 2024. And we have seen operational efficiency at the same time, operational risk. So how we identify this risk regarding operational, and how do we have any kind of formula or kind of matrices to compare our company with another company and finding the operational risk from management side?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of a formula there. However, I look at risk in a couple of different ways when we're thinking of the operational risk. And I'm going to talk specifically about the manager's role in the sense of team members, right? So this is a member of your team or an employee, and they're in a management position. Well, if you bring someone into a management position and they are ill-equipped or there's not enough work for them as a manager, you're taking a risk that the company will grow into them being able to fulfill that position. Alternatively, if you don't think long-term and you're expecting that manager to manage workload, team members of a massive team, and let's say it's more than 15 people reporting to them, right? Now you're starting to hit them past capacity, which will lead to burnout, illness, dropped balls, all of those things. So when I look at the risk factor, and if I was going to apply an algorithm for any managers, I like to keep my management team at an 80% capacity, meaning they're at 80%. That gives us 20% of wiggle room, that if we get new team members that they're doing one-on-one sessions with, that they're training with, etc., or we bring in a new project and we want them to be able to help and support with that, we've got 20% of bandwidth. Also, when they start to reach that capacity of 100%, now we can take a look and go, what can we do to bring them back down to 80% and bring in someone else to support? And can we get that person up to 80%? So I start to look at the percentages of the workload, of what they're doing and how that is impacting them, the team, our company, and our clients. So when I'm looking at operational risk in terms of hiring people, those are the 4 pillars I look at, and I try to be in that 80 to 20% range, that 80% of workload, 20% that allows them that flexibility to grow into more. And also that 20% flexibility takes them out of constant execution mode and allows them that creative thinking and strategic thinking to look at how we can continue to improve the organization, the team, the company, and the customer experience.
Wow. And Taylor, when it's come to big tech companies, rising the bars to employees or increasing their target, you have to achieve this much target in this specific time period, and we giving like deadlines, so which is a very important role in a management task. So in this kind of scenarios, do you think it's better to change the management every 5 years or 4 years term, or it's better to continue the same management for a long term, like 10, 20 years? Because we have seen, and I have no idea, some employees are there in some companies, they're working for like 20, 25 years. At the same time, some excellent employees are there. They keep shifting their role in companies to companies, like 4 years and 5 years and 3 years, and they are in executive level. So how are you seeing these two type of managerial changes inside the company?
Yeah, so I think this is a current, and I would say ongoing and continuing into the future trend, right? Gone are the days where someone stays at a company, especially in the tech space, for 15, 20 years. And I think that that's this trend and direction of 3 to 5 year company jumping is actually a really good thing. And here's why. When you have that startup phase and you don't have your standard operating procedures, you haven't necessarily grown out your team beyond like those multiple levels with the growth pathing and things like that, there's a lot of internal and learned information, right? So if you've got one person who's doing marketing, they have to know everything about the marketing, which
Yeah.
really limits you. So as you grow as a company, you're hiring more people and that information gets disseminated across more brains, which then makes it so that you are not solely reliant in your business on one person knowing and being the end all be all in their category. And so what's beautiful about that is as you grow and you have these managers who are looking for other opportunities, also you don't get caught in the, well, we've always done it this way, right? Because they've been there, but the information is now across multiple team members. So if they leave, it's not lost. And ideally, you have SOPs, standard operating procedures, there to support so the systems and processes don't get lost. And you can bring in new blood or promote from within and create an opportunity for the company to keep on growing and not get stuck in the, well, when I was the only one here, this is what we did and it didn't work. And it's like, yeah, it didn't work 10 years ago, but the market's different now and we want to do it in this way. And I think this campaign could work, right? So really, I'm a big fan of bringing in new blood into the company and not falling into trap or falling prey to the idea of like, well, I've been here for so long that I know everything, because we don't want that.
Yeah.
And it also really supports in my opinion, a culture of growth, because the number of times way early in my career, which there's a line right around 2017, 2018, where this trend of job hopping started happening, right? You're there for 3 to 5 years and then you move to the next company. Previous to that, I noticed a lot of ceilings. I would be working and it was like, okay, well, the next role is this managerial position, but this person's been in it for 10 years. They're not going anywhere. I've got nowhere to go. And so that's what started, I think, the job. Like, okay, now I've been here 3 to 5 years. I'm going to go to this next company and explore that and new things there and involve myself in a different and new culture. Now, with that happening, the people who are in those organizations are saying, cool, my next role is in this position and it's going to open in 2 years because that person's going to probably move up to another position, or they're going to go to another company and offer their insights, time, talent, efforts, and energy there. So I actually think it's a really good thing, and it's probably inappropriate to call it a trend at this point. I think it's just the nature of the employment market that you're going to be there for 3 to 5 years and then move to the next thing, taking your experience with you as a team member and helping the next company grow and scale in the best ways possible, which also comes back the other way. You're bringing in new people who have different experiences, different expertise, and that can help your company grow in ways you never would have thought possible before.
Wow. And Taylor, when it's come to delegation of operations, so we have to avoid the micromanagement. At the same time, we have to increase the quality control. So how are you seeing these 2 points? This is two, I see like opposite, like kind of both are in opposite way, two directions. So how we find a clear cut on it?
SOPs. Standard
Hmm.
operating procedures are the Bible. Like they are everything in this conversation. And that is because when you have an SOP, you're not trying to remember every single little thing and then having the balls drop and then creating the poor customer experience or the poor quality, right? So you have to have a standard operating procedure, even if we're talking manufacturing, right? That's probably the easiest to think about. It's like, all right, I put the bag in here, it fills it up, it comes here, I seal the pouch, I put this sticker on, I put it in the box. Like the room for error is minimal because you always know your next step. That's what SOPs do, is they help you know your next steps. So you're not going from memory, you're going from checklist, which frees you up to catch your mistakes instead of being like, oh crap, did I do that wrong? Because I was trying to recall it from memory. So SOPs to me are everything, especially in maintaining quality. Now, you asked about micromanagement. I also love SOPs for this because as a manager, I can train my team on the SOP and then say, okay, here you go. And now it can turn into a collaboration because they're in it, working it every day. They can see, hey, actually, we duplicate this step and this step. And the truth is, it could be blended into one. Or we've been doing this way, but I could actually put a prompt into AI and it would produce the same thing and save us 10 minutes, right? So now your team has a foundation that they can build from and start to optimize from and work together with. Because also, if everyone's working from the same SOP, there's not a lot of confusion, which makes more room for communication and collaboration. So it's the exact opposite of micromanagement. Instead, it's giving your team a tool that they can build, optimize, and grow from, but also gives you a tool to say, hey, I noticed we missed this thing. Have you been using the SOP? Instead of, let me look over your shoulder and watch how you're doing this because you're obviously missing something. And that's a micromanagement technique, right? So SOPs for the win, time and time again, for that quality and that end experience, for the experience and collaboration of your team, and to prevent micromanaging and be able to turn that into a coaching opportunity instead.
Wow. And Taylor, based on your experience, which department is expensive in a cost way? I mean, HR department or finance or marketing or production side or sales team. Which department is most expensive in a company? In a common company, I mean, not into a production side or in a service way. So in a common point of view, which you seeing as most expensive people or human resources are available?
Truth be told, I don't know. I think that depends largely on the company and their priorities, and the owner's priorities and the people who are growing the organization's priorities. Because if you're prioritizing HR and let's say leadership and development, that could be considered expensive, but the long-term results and the return on that investment lead to longer retention of employees, better culture, which we already talked about, as an increased productivity, efficiency, better customer experience in the long run. So in my opinion, I think it's very difficult to be able to say what department or team in an organization is the most expensive. I think that it depends on where the owner and those growing the organization have prioritized their spend, but also what does expensive mean? Are we talking financially, which again can depend on number of team members and things like that, which also depends on where our focus and prioritization of growth has been? Or is it expensive in terms of this team always has problems, we're always pulling in our HR, we're losing team members all the time, right? That could be an expensive team, but that depends largely on the manager and the culture of the company as opposed to the work itself.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And Taylor, what is the biggest operational challenge you have faced?
Oh, biggest operational challenge I have faced is it's really funny because with putting in standard operating procedures and a focus on culture and all of these pieces that we've discussed so far, uh, those are relatively easy. Like, you know what to do, you can come in, you can set it up and do it. I think the biggest challenge I had operationally when I was especially leading my 30-person international team was the international component. Specifically, I'm very American, if you can't tell. And that means I tend to, and I'm working on this, but at the time, I really tended to have a mindset of, okay, well, your 2 weeks for the year are your vacation and your sick pay. And like, you go in and you get the job done. And when I spent 6 weeks over in Scotland, I we hired a team that focused on and were from the countries of Germany, Italy, France, and Spain. And then my team lead was Austrian. And then we were all located in Edinburgh, Scotland. So very European mindsets, which is not a problem. But coming into that, it was, okay, I'm onboarding my team. We're getting everybody going. We're getting this ramped up. We're handling our SOPs. We're training. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to take a holiday. I'll be gone for a week. And I'm like, you've been working here a week and a half. Like, you can't just take a holiday. Right. And
Mm,
because in America, it's very much like you come in, you work, and you're working there for 9 months before you're taking a holiday, or
yeah,
a vacation in our language, right? But it was very much a priority to them. And that was beautiful and totally fine. And I loved the work-life balance, and I wanted my team to have that work-life balance. But it was really hard for me to be like, I'm living here. I'm dedicating all these things to get this going, and you're taking a vacation, right? And
yeah,
so it's just very much the mindset and the cultural differences that I had to learn how to navigate. And that's very much an operational thing, right? I
yeah,
have to
yeah,
backfill for my one team member who speaks German. If they're going on vacation, I don't have anybody else to speak German. Right? So
yeah.
operationally, we've got to figure those things out and backfill and adjust for all of that. And they are having 6 weeks of paid vacation or holiday time to R2 in the United States. And so the cultural discrepancies, and I'm not like, there's no right or wrong, but the cultural discrepancies that I had to navigate operationally while still having a strong culture, we're still maintaining a high quality of output and end experience for our customers was probably the hardest thing I had to navigate, because it was kind of like a, I know the rest of the world doesn't act like America, but holy cow, yeah, the rest of the world does not act like America. And I had to come to terms with that and navigate those waters while still maintaining everything that we had built as the standard in America first.
Wow. And I totally agree with that. And I feel like a lot of countries outside America is trying to focus on American culture in a workplace, and they're trying to copy American culture in workplace. And to be frank with you, America is leading in work culture, and even big tech companies are situated there, and the law and the country law and all more flexible towards a company. So yeah, it's a common thing, and I can see that the country laws and their culture is mostly different. And yeah, when we mixing with them, the things are getting changed. Same here. And Taylor, the next question:
Yeah.
uh, Trump or Kamala Harris?
I no response. I do not engage in political back and forth. And honestly, I'm sure it's very different across the rest of the world, but it can be a very polarizing topic here in the United States right now. And frankly, I'm not informed enough on either of them to make a solid decision one way or the other quite yet.
Hmm. And as a company owner and entrepreneur and startup founder, based on the political stuff, we forget about the parties and all, how it will political decisions or the elections, how it can be impact on the business. I mean, in the interest rates or the mortgages or export import tariff and all. Will it highly impact on 2025, or will it go ahead 25, 26, same like 2024?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of I'm seeing it in the market right now in America, where we are in a recession, yet neither political candidate wants to say so because they don't want to jeopardize their opportunities to be elected. But we're technically in a recession right now, and economically, spending across America drops in an election year because a lot of people, customers and business owners, are worried about what the outcome of the election will bring. And my opinion is that there's nothing, regardless of who is elected, there's nothing that the president will be able to do, change, or impact for at least 9 to 12 months. So it's not like they come in office and suddenly all hell breaks loose and everything is changed and turned on its head. We are much too large of a organizational government for that to actually happen. And you also have to look at, in terms of political parties, right? When you have a president who's one political party and then the House and the Senate or maybe are led by different political parties, there's a lot of time spent headbutting and trying to compromise, and that's my nice way of saying it, right? But trying to find a compromise to be able to push things through, which leads to a lot of standstills. So in my opinion, take it or leave it, right? But in my
Yeah.
opinion, I don't foresee a lot of massive changes within the first 12 months. And even then, if we look at past presidential changes into the small business and entrepreneurial landscape, changes haven't been that drastic or massive. And I look at it like I'm here to run my business. And if something changes, that's business ownership. Like, it's my job to evolve and be compliant and do what needs to be done. And worrying about it before it actually happens does nothing but suck my time, my energy, culturally seep into my team this fear and this worry, and it does nobody any good. So I'm very much in the space of like, if it happens, that's just another obstacle as a business owner that we have to overcome, another challenge to work through and maneuver our business with. And if it doesn't happen, I didn't waste any time worrying about it because I was still here doing the best I can for my business, for my customers, and for my team.
Wow. I totally agree with that. And for the listeners, I'm saying again, this is not a political debate. I just bring in the political stuff because the trend, we know the elections is coming in next coming months. So just a question there, but it's still we are stick with the business and all. And Taylor, one more question.
Sure.
There are a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs and executives who are watching this podcast or hearing this podcast. So what is your advice for those entrepreneurs regarding operational effectiveness and efficiency?
As basic as it sounds, SOPs are your best friend, right? When we're looking at the operations of a business, the SOP is the foundation. And regardless of where you're growing and going in your business, regardless if you are a small team, maybe a solopreneur, or you have department leads and departments, or you're a huge organization, SOPs are the evergreen lifeblood to be operationally efficient and sound. And so my advice would be double down on SOPs, but do not expect those SOPs to be a one and done. As I mentioned, right, it's an opportunity for your team to collaborate and continue to optimize. And so as your business changes and evolves, you'll need to go back to your SOPs and make sure that they're still aligned. And so I would suggest once a quarter, at least twice a year, going in, reviewing your SOPs, making sure they're up to snuff, and reminding your team that these are the standards that we use and maintain to continue to grow as a business and continue to create a great workplace environment and culture, so that everyone can grow and have an incredible opportunity within their life to be a part of this business. When we're CEOs, entrepreneurs, startup leads, right, there is this sense of ownership. And part of that ownership is setting up the foundations, and SOPs are that number one foundation to operationally thrive as a business.
Wow. And Taylor, we have discussed a lot about team building and leadership in past previous episodes. And I would like to drag one more question regarding this team building here to our listeners. So the building a team is very hard, as we mentioned in last episode also, that finding a right talented people and right track is very hard. And it's very easy to say we can hire that person, we can hire a talented person. And when those people come into the pace and when the problem solving skills and all, we can find a different person or different version from each and everyone. Some people are naturally talented. Some people should be like, we should give the training and seminars. With that, they are coming into the flow. So this team building expenses and the foreseeable future and how this team should be effective in the future. So this is a very big planning of HR and human resource management. So when it's come to this risk, so we investing a lot on team building and leadership, and when it will pay back and how long it will take, and if the person leave the team from for another good offer from our team, so how the consequences will work inside the team or a company.
Yeah, so I think that there's always risk in investing in an individual that could leave.
Mm.
But the risk is way higher to not train them in the way that you want the culture and the business to be ran, right? Like if we go into investing into our team with the thought that they're going to leave, so we shouldn't invest in them, you're taking a much bigger risk that your company culture, your employee retention, your customer satisfaction, the ability to grow and scale faster and effectively, all of that you're risking because you're unwilling to invest in your people. So to me, I think that there's a fine line, right? Like we can't just be throwing money. Like there needs to be a strategic play of, hey, so we have this leadership team and these people are all coming in. We need to do a leadership training program so that they're fully aware of what our expectations are of the company, how they can be a better manager to their team, and all of these pieces. The nice thing is you can hire someone to do that. You can build it in your own team or in your own company. And it's an hour a week plus homework for those leaders. And it also is a really great indicator. This to me is huge. If you have someone in a leadership position who scoffs and balks at the fact that you want to offer them leadership training, that tells me the type of leader they are right there. They're not interested in growth. They're not interested in investing back into themselves and into their own team. That to me says you're not the leader I want working for my company. Now, that's a very personal opinion, but I believe in investing in your people. And if they leave, but they leave with, they taught me how to be a good leader. I loved working there. I'm going to send people to go work there, like all of these pieces. And the company grew in the way that you wanted it to via your leaders the whole time that that person was there. And if you can operationally put in a system so that any new leader coming in gets trained in this very specific way, you're now setting the standard and the cost goes down while the rewards go up.
Wow, that's very legit, and I love that answer.
Thank
And
you.
it's not just personal; it's very fair one. And yeah, and Taylor, when it's come to companies right now, we are thrilled to have new products and new product lineups. So we have seen some AI technologies come into the pace, and some senior management still not following AI guidelines or not trying to focus on AIs, to be frank with you. So how this AI ChatGPT? We have seen ChatGPT like 2-3 months back, which is in a very raw format. Right now, the ChatGPT is everything. Even I can see a very even small children's also using ChatGPT for
Mhm.
school homework, and so this that kind of it's kind of a right hand for everyone right now. So this kind of trend, how we can impose more into management and decision making skills, and how we can enhance the process of the workflow.
I think first and foremost that it's important to acknowledge that ChatGPT's results are only as good as its inputs. So
Mm.
if I ask, hey, what's the percentage of X versus Y, it'll tell me. But if I say, what's the percentage of X versus Y in coordination with Z, right? Then
Yeah.
it's going to give me a different answer. And so it's really all about what you input into it. So as managers and as leaders, we can't be afraid of ChatGPT or AI and the results. But if we are seeing subpar results, that means that our team or ourselves are putting in subpar prompts. So that point, I think it's really about training yourself and your teams to evolve the way that they ask questions, to treat ChatGPT as though it's a partner and treat it like it's a team member, right? If I'm working with ChatGPT to be a copywriter, I used to lead copywriting teams. I used to be a copywriter way back in the day. So I know when I do a prompt for ChatGPT, I will give it all the information I would give a copywriter team member. And that creates the output that I want. But if I just say, hey, write this email around this topic, who knows what I'll get? So as managers, as leaders, as organizations, I think there's a place to embrace AI, but I think that the quality of the results for it is based on your prompts. So if you need to teach and train, going back to like, how do we invest into our people? That's going to, by investing into your people in trainings or whatever it is, now their ability to ask better level prompts allows for better output through chat. Additionally, I think that we cannot rely on chat for the end all be all, for AI to be the end all be all. There still needs to be a human touch, right? To make it so it sounds like the brand's tone and voice, and that it is using words that the brand would use, and that it is putting out results that align with the company's values and mission and all of those pieces. So you're always going to have someone take a look at it and or revise it to make it their own. But the amount of time saved that allows for the space of editing versus writing from scratch, I think is massive. And so as management, I think it's taking a look at setting clear expectations, offering good training, and expecting our inputs to be higher level, high value inputs so we can get higher level, high value results.
Wow. And top of that, one more question with the technology and all. So right now we have Microsoft 365, which is we have Excel, Word, and all. So spreadsheets. So we have seen a frequent use of spreadsheet before 2 3 years, from even from the top level management to the lower level leaders. So a lot of people using spreadsheets. So we have seen right now are trending things that new apps are coming into the market and people used to it, and trial period, and people are trying it, and they're getting good results. So we can see the declining line of spreadsheets, like now 100%, now it came to like 40 to 45% usage of spreadsheets in companies. So how you seeing this? Is it technically, or how do you seeing this point? I mean, reducing the usage of spreadsheet is a good thing, or it's they are shifting to a new technologies? Is a how do you seeing this point?
I think that I view it probably differently than what you're expecting the answer to be, but I personally like spreadsheets a lot, but I had to learn to use them because I had a boss that used spreadsheets. Then
Mhm.
at another point in time, I had a different leader that I reported to that they were much more visual. And so I had to learn the communication style of who I was working with and get good at that. So I'm incredible at creating really nice branded presentations and decks. And I'm also really good at using spreadsheets. And it, when I'm just with me, I actually go between the two. So it's interesting because I would assume that the technology piece of this and the decline of using spreadsheets is less about the technology component of it and more about how the information is perceived by on the receiving end, right? So
Mhm.
for example, I had that one leader that was all about spreadsheets. So they liked all their information provided to them in spreadsheets. When I got
Yeah.
that new leader and they wanted all visual, I just took the spreadsheet and made it visual and then gave it to them. And so I think we are becoming a much more visually and tactile type of learning space or individuals in the business space, right? And so a lot more people are visual than data and numbers based. And so I would assume that it's less about the spreadsheets technology and more about it's easier to take that information and provide it in a different way that's more palatable to the people who are receiving it so that our communication is more clear. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's kind of how I see it. It's like, let's use technology to help clear the way for better communication and more clarity. And a lot of people's eyes glaze over or they have fears of numbers when they see spreadsheets. And so a decline in using spreadsheets and going to something else that's more palatable to the receiving end, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it's very fair enough. And people love to see this 3D and cartoonic stuff, visual presentation compared to the numbers and graph and bar chart and pie chart and all. So now the things are changing a bit with new incoming technologies and ChatGPT and some more AIs are coming in, and we can see the future and we can predict the future from here. And I think we are near to exit, and we have discussed a lot about the workforce and how to handle the delegation and how to handle the bottleneck and inefficiencies and asset management stuff in operational risk especially, and ensuring the consistency when the organization is spread across the country or the location and the departments, and the biggest operational risk that the Taylor faced in her life and all. So this was a very interesting topic and interesting discussion we had. And thank you very much, Taylor, to join with me.
Thank you so much, Ash. We'll see you soon.